time uncertainty, time insecurity, time drowning, and time scarcity. Without the ability to predict or understand it, which is akin to not being able to predict or understand material reality, we struggle. And for all these reasons, yeah, no fucking wonder a person can start to get a little time fearful after a lifetime of this. Time is supposed to be a standardized, measurable experience and a grid for planning life. But with a trauma brain keeping the beat, it tends to be anything but. And here's the real problem. That means you're living in a different universe than the rest of humanity. Hey, fuckers. This month in the Patreon feed, we talked about fear and how to use it. I wonder why. Yeah. We got personal, something that I've been practicing, and we released a lot. Part of my doing everything differently in 2026. So, we discussed the downward moving escalators that we've, broadly speaking, been living a Sisyphusian nightmare upon, while blaming ourselves for not making enough progress per the voices that are screaming at us from atop mountains we will never reach. The fake fears of being wrong in a falsely promised world while the end is nigh. A millennial's tale. We also talked about the real fears of this time if you're me. Now, you probably want to skip ahead about 10 seconds if you are triggerable. So here we go. My real fear is living slowly through, not dying in these modern times. Once accepted, that creates a lot of freedom, gratitude, and even moments of something like joy. We went through the process of using complex emotions to find fears, to use them as motivational jumping boards for the rest of your life. I call it the dark arts. We talked again about self love and the real, not gaily nebulous way to create it. We did an exercise on identifying and reorganizing the containers or structures or cages in your life so that they conform to you, not the other way around. We squeezed in a research episode about psychosomatic illness or somatic symptom disorder and its connection to suppressed anger, feminine rage, hatred, all emotions. But those are top of the mind, again, for some reason lately. Hey, if you're naturally an expressive person, but you've learned that it's not allowed, just a hint, suppressing your feelings will break your back and organs anyways. We did an activity to find and characterize time distortions hour by hour in our lives to try to create a more standardized and usable experience. And as the basis for that exercise show, we had a delayed entry in the time distortion series that we started 4 years ago, which is what you will hear here today. In conclusion, it's been a busy month talking about fears and the fucked up reality that we find ourselves in. I even videoed my face and practiced getting personal in preparation for a new episode type that we're starting for February. Dating in dystopia. Yeah, I'm doing it. And seeking a commiserating club of tea spillers to join me. Which also, check out the new Discord that I just started because you can only talk about trauma for so long. I've changed, the show is transitioning very much, and the community needs to too, for doing more than surviving these purposely fearful times. Together, we must have community, co-immunity. That's it, y'all. Check it all out. Patreon.com/traumatized motherfuckers. I'm trying to do everything differently, including not working 5 jobs at a time this year, so that I can have real relationships and connections with you all and the nightmare humans on the dating apps. Anyways, the extra effort shows in the shows and help me achieve my goal of not working more jobs than any person should have. Patreon.com/traumatized motherfuckers. Now, here's this one. Enjoy this episode on time, Turrors, and Disturtions from the private Patreon feed. Cheers, y'all. Hey, fuckers. I hope that you are staying warm and safe this potentially blizzardy weekend. I'm trying my best. Today, as long as we have been speaking about fear, we're going to dive into my greatest ongoing neuroticism, inextricably connected to the risky nature of being in my skin. Time. Especially when your mind has been T-worded. Time is scary because it represents experience, which has been pervasively dick-kicking. When life has been hard, time appears to be an agent of impending doom and imprisonment. It ushers in unknown events and therefore suggests that we have things to be doing for our own good and safety all the time to offset looming challenges. It is inconsistent between individuals, which causes more relational issues as if we needed them. It is limited or way too expansive. Life appears too short and too long. Not enough time to do what you want, too much time to deal with all the things you wish you could avoid. It is, as we keep saying, philosophically a travesty to know that life equals time, but time is taken up by so many things that the individual does not want in their life, so that time is both desired, theoretically, and despised in practical reality, like an abusive relationship we cannot end. Until we do. Naturally, or because we can't stand the torment of time anymore. Not to be dark again. Sorry. Time. We want it, but only when conditions are right. And for most of us here, conditions have not been great. Plus, 2026. So let's dive in. I recently said I was left without feelings and only with my stupid fucking brain to rely on, which is a very bad position for someone like myself to be in. You cannot really run your life on only your brain. Look, that's not true. Of course, it's possible to run your life off of your stupid fucking brain, but that is inefficient and also very discombobulating because the mind falls for illusions and creates illusions. We spoke about time distortions 4 years ago, and I was never happy with how that series turned out, but I didn't have the time to do it all over again. We talked about past and future time orientations as the thieves of joy. Ruminating and catastrophizing were highly implicated within, but that is a very tiny portion of traumatic time distortion. And look, yeah, there are obvious problems. Upsetting memories and depression, they suck you backwards. Anxious predictions and attempts at control, they launch you forwards. Disassociation into personality parts can fragment and compartmentalize experiences of time. You might not remember things you did or need to do. So, piecing together a cohesive timeline of where you've been and where you are going can be impossible. With this fragmentation of the personality, time feels lost because it is not centrally experienced. It's observed and recalled in pockets that are accessible at different times under different emotional states. This is further troubled by the faulty DMN connections, the default mode network linkages within the brain. When we are resting, the mind should be exploring and sewing memories into our autobiography, stitching events into our ongoing story to keep track of where we are based on where we've been. But with traumatic backgrounds, and I would say, again, this also speaks to the surroundings that we are in, 2026, we instead tend to be thrown into these disjointed, visceral memories. And this goes alongside the traumatic memory issues that establish the trauma in the first place. It's just ongoing recollective problems all the way down. When you don't remember your entire timeline, that itself creates time distortions because you have no scale. Prior experiences of time are missing, so there's no example to use for a generalized understanding. What does a year feel like? I don't know. I can't really remember those. This gives the result of feeling trapped in a time, maybe forever, not a progressive continuum where today adds onto the pile of past experiences, but a single dot on that timeline is all that the person can engage with. Every event, every time period then feels larger and more infinite than it really is without the background context of the past 25 years I've been alive, for example. On top of that, we can also have generalized memory issues, especially when depressed. Recollections that haunt us without necessarily understanding why we're revisiting them. These aren't necessarily highly arousing, like intrusive memories, but something about them is unsettled. They keep returning to us like a boomerang. Additionally, figure that stimulation extremes distort time. The CPTSD crew often has overstimulation or numbing problems. Both corrupt the mind's ability to track time. Stuck in a room, overstimulated, time is very slow. Overstimulated and presented with great opportunity for movement, time is probably fast. And all together, when thinking of problems that go hand in hand with drama, big emotional experiences are slow. Manic mental experiences are quite fast. The experience of suffering in the body, in time, is very slow. Disassociation, which is ditching the body, ditching material information, thus ditching the medium of time. Once again, very fast. So, traumatized states tend to be back and forths of these experiences, skewing the sense of time depending on what is taking place, creating wormholes and Velcro traps, maybe months of one condition and then months of the opposite, so that looking back, some years are lost. Floating through days in depression or a traumatic shutdown makes time flow together without specific, unique events taking place. It can make days feel very long when you are in them and then incredibly short when you look back on them because, hey, what happened? Nothing. And the mind sort of glazes over how excruciating that was minute by minute, erasing the memories, erasing the experience of time, perhaps for self protection, perhaps because there are rarely very unique moments within a slow paced misery. Because every day lacks boundaries between others, it feels like events that have already transpired just took place, when in fact the mind may be skipping over 6 months or 6 years of unexciting suffering in between. And future events feel like they could either be 2 years away or pop up unexpectedly tomorrow. You can blink and find yourself teed up for an experience that you were painfully waiting for, seemingly forever. It felt like it would never come. It still feels like you have so much time to spare and prepare, but nope, it's here, as if it's a complete surprise. Throw in the attentional issues, and Jesus fucking Christ, we know what time it is now, but maybe not 2 hours from now when the mind has gotten completely sidetracked. With attentional challenges, we poorly estimate how long it takes to complete tasks, especially because of the procrastinations and side quests that pop up. So that time, again, feels lost. It just goes missing. But we can also get hyper focused on time, so aware of it passing that it slows and stagnates. Suddenly, all we have is time, which can be very painful and sets us up for failure when suddenly we've gotten distracted again and misplaced all of those moments once more. Overall, the experience of time is relative to the experience of the beholder. Yeah, duh. A spicy mind that has been through significant trauma can mean those experiences drag on or change very quickly. Or, really, as we've said, both, creating hallucinatory like relationships with time. Alice in Wonderland experiences where it gets very big and very small without our ability to control or navigate it predictively. Time uncertainty, time insecurity, time drowning, and time scarcity. Without the ability to predict or understand it, which is akin to not being able to predict or understand material reality, we struggle. And for all these reasons, yeah, no fucking wonder a person can start to get a little time fearful after a lifetime of this. P.S. What lifetime? How long has it really been? My point is, time is supposed to be a standardized, measurable experience and a grid for planning life. But with a trauma brain keeping the beat, it tends to be anything but. And here's the real problem. That means you're living in a different universe than the rest of humanity, on a different material planet that you are not privy to. They don't have illusions of time extending forever or absolutely disappearing. Next week means next week to them. They can accurately plan for it because they have a homogeneous experience of time passing. Meanwhile, what will we be doing next Tuesday? When I'm all mindfully fucked up, I could never tell you. I could wake up seemingly tomorrow and find that the day has suddenly come, or could feel like 3 months from now by the time the date arrives. And what state will I be in by then? Who knows? My rightful mental emotional volatility in the context of the state of the world makes it impossible to predict, which is fearful when taken together. To realize that to some perceptual extent, you are living a different timeline than everyone else. But in reality, you're playing the same game. You just can't see the squares and the dice clearly while they navigate the board like experts. That means everyone else will have some upper hand, some clarity and structure in their existence, some measure, some metronome of life that you're simply unable to recreate yourself consistently. Maybe keeping time just fine this month when things are relatively all right. But when will something trigger that T brain so you watch all sense of time go out the window again? We never know. And that alone is something to fear. On top of that, it means you live in two different realities compared to the people around you. And their reality seems to be realer than yours because the rest of the world is in agreement. This is what time it is. None of this helps the prevailing traumatic fears. Am I a fucking crazy person? Am I broken? Am I just somehow incapable? And the sense of time fear becomes correlated with self fear as a result. The corresponding personal and practical issues do not help. because you and your social associates can both realize that this time experience incongruence exists, but nothing either of you can say will help the other to jump onto the same track, to sync up, to handle time the same way. No, they can't, and you can't. Just get on the same page. Just have the same experience of time and strategy for using it, because the experiences are not comprehensible from the alternative position. This time illusion, confusion, is not a choice. It's locked into our perceptions. All the involuntary mind behaviors that are creating this chasm prevent just knocking it off and getting with the times, which is sort of the point to tap into to cut out this inconsistent experience and resulting terror of time. What to do? All of this considered, what is the golden move? Time is a function of material reality. We only know time is passing because things grow, things change, break, die, and decay. So the answer is to use your material reality, your meat prison, your biological matter suit to keep the time, to investigate and begin to understand how it keeps time for you. As usual, the answer is get out of your goddamn head and into your guttural space. But a little more complicated than that. So here's what I mean. The mind is obsessed with what is happening outside of us because it needs to understand those variables to provide direction to the rest of your being. But the problem is paying attention to those outside events and instructing oneself from there will create time illusions by the very nature of outside events when filtered through a human brain. External sources of time management cause inconsistent time experiences because external events happen at different paces, unpredictably, and the nature of them is a complete crapshoot. Sometimes events outside of you will cause a rapid internal and external response, and sometimes a painfully slow one. Sometimes they're extreme and quick, sometimes extreme and slow. Sometimes they are dull, void of information, external events, and they last seemingly forever. If an event takes place that causes a physical or mental reaction, time moves quickly. If an event takes place that elicits an emotional one, time is probably going to slow down. If nothing happens, you'll probably return to your own default time signature, which may have been created by pervasive early life trauma while you wait for the events. Will you be manic or depressive, moving like the wind or like a large boulder? That's up to your past history with time. Example, someone runs into the office. There's a fire in the stockroom. Physically, you move quickly to get out of there. Mentally, you move quickly to determine what needs to be saved first. Together, based on this external event, time flies. Or someone runs into the office. There's been a fire in the stockroom of the building next door, and there have been casualties. People that you knew. You're struck by grief and disbelief. Emotionally, things start to move very slowly. Time crawls. Or no fire takes place. You return to your default depresso anxious mood and nervous system default mode, waiting for something to happen, and time halts. Or perhaps moves very quickly because you're disassociated from the discomfort. The point is, when we're directed by outside events, when we're mentally reactive without pause, and live our lives this way, collecting information from outside and jumping into gear depending on its nature, the experience of time becomes uncalibrated, unstandardized. We're tossed into hyperdrive or halted. And in between, when we're lacking stimulation, we fall back into holding state patterns. We become pawns of our surroundings. And these days, with so many events happening or being hinted at before not happening, living this way means time is continually getting bigger and smaller, depending on the moment. So much to frantically try to accomplish for safety, so much to slowly grieve through and wait for. Back and forth, back and forth, with the result of humans winding up on different timelines, as if we weren't already living in different tech-created worlds, causing even greater disconnects and increasing the sense of isolation on planet Earth. Because everyone is living on a different beat according to what they have consumed and what is going on in their own life. And that beat keeps changing, often, depending on which headline is in front of the face. So there's no coordination in the choir. It's like they've created a fun house for all of us. Everything distorted, down to the minutes that tick away between batshit news articles. So the answer? Yeah, I'll be real with you. This is another one of those incredibly annoying episodes where the answer is essentially diet and exercise. It's the hard, consistent work. Not flashy, not a 2-second life hack on TikTok. It's doing the things we all know we need to do to keep ourselves sane, which is so much harder to do when time is slippery or stabby. To regulate time, we have to return to the body, to the guts, to find a consistent, predictable experience of it, and to determine our own pace, the speed with which we process and move. When these are out of sync, time is moving slow, but our brains and bodies tend to move very fast, or vice versa. Time is moving very fast, but brains and bodies are lagging a bit. Then it's a tense, sandpapery, stressful experience to be alive, like playing notes at the wrong time, feeling perpetually rushed or weighed down, out of time with time. But getting into the bod and becoming intimately acquainted with how time feels inside of you, how you feel inside of time, amends this. With practice, you start to learn this is how time moves for me, how information passes through my body, how long it takes for decisions to feel thorough and correct, how quickly I move within material information, known as being alive on Earth. And this eventually becomes accepted knowledge. Not inconvenient information that won't be good enough for the demands of the world, but data that is integrated into every other area of life, so that over time, you begin to understand how much you really have. So you don't have to panic about running out of it or drowning in it. And you can begin to set your own pace via the confidence that it is allowed and accurate, not a shortcoming or an illusion. We are allowed to move in response to our own readiness and best benefit. For instance, not forcing oneself to make a decision before feeling confident in the determination, not walking too quickly to maintain a proper form, and hurting oneself because some looming sense of pending danger is causing you to hurry up now. Instead, taking things by our own comfortable pacing and experiencing time throughout every cell of our being. The traumatized system has to relearn this, has to re-find its own pacing rather than marching to the drum of prior trauma, the demands of current survival, the dictations of automatic mental reactions. So here is the process. All right. We're going to have to rip the band aid off and experience time from inside. Undistracted, associated, feeling, embodied time. If you can't feel, don't worry, you'll start to throughout this process. To re standardize time without the jarring illusions created by all the aforementioned conditions, the answer is, as I said, annoying. Let's be more annoying as long as we're at it. Here are the quick hits that you don't want to hear. The tips that will help reestablish a relationship with time. You already know. Spend less time on screens. Where do all the hours go? Disassociated into the ether while scrolling. This is the number one way to change the relationship with time. Take your time back from the corporations that own the internet, that are owning your life. Next point, less noise. It fills time with decoration, making you pay attention to one while you miss out on the other. Less multitasking. How can you measure time when you're split between 10 different tasks, sort of accomplishing some of them? You can't. Less routine. Sure, in a way, it standardizes the experience of a day. And also, it puts you on autopilot so you're not really observing or navigating through time. Less socializing. Because it always makes time go faster? Hell nah. Hold eye contact with someone and watch time stop. Relating is a time trip, manipulating perception in both directions. When you're doing your time work, probably try to do it by yourself. And finally, the real point here, sitting still more. Sorry. As we're always saying, sitting inside yourself, imagining you inside of you, like Russian dolls, and paying attention to those findings within. The information inside of your material body, not the information outside of it that creates the aforementioned illusions. Sitting still and paying attention to yourself, though, is very, very hard. Ironically, the very experience of being you alive in time feels like quite a feat. But remember, this work does not have to be 8 hours straight, and it does not have to be uncomfortable. You can do this wrapped in a blanket, laying in bed, or looking at your favorite scenery. And we're going to start easy and dial up the difficulty. The point is to consistently try not to move for several minutes a day, spread throughout that day, while staying aware of how the body feels, which is still kind of a lot to ask. If you've been on the fast track, heart racing like a hummingbird, you might not be able to sit still for that long. Too much to do, too many valid distractions, too much fear that's been stored up in the body to withstand the pain of those nerve endings that are screaming, fire. Yeah, I feel ya. I live in this state if I am not careful. So, knowing that this pattern, this pacing, is deep in your bones. Instead of giving yourself an unwinnable goal, start the sitting process with 30 seconds. Sit still and conscious of your inner sensations for half of 1 minute. Again, lay down if that's better for you. You know my tricks by now. Drop your energy out of your head and into your body. Imagine it moving down and using out breaths to allow it to get into that space that air is normally filling. And feel into the bottoms of your feet. And pretend you have a paintbrush running up and down the inside of your chest cavity. Feel where the bristles touch. And imagine your inner events like swirls of color. Sit with them, move them around, practice gathering up the clouds and releasing them again. The point is, find an emotional embodying practice that works for you. It does not have to be breathing, which is very fucking boring. Then do that practice for 30 seconds. And again, let's say 2 more times later that day. Then Do it a total of 4 times a few days later, then 5 times, before extending 30 seconds to maybe 1 minute and dialing back the number of trials to begin getting comfortable with that exposure duration again. 1 minute, 3 times a day, then 1 minute, 4 times a day. And see how you start to build a tolerance for being in your body, even an appreciation of being in your body against the ever present threat of time. It provides, for once, a quiet moment of clarity within yourself, a chance for regrouping and also for recalibrating the internal metronome so that it matches the present time accordingly. So whatever you do have to deal with becomes less strenuous, less crap shooty, less time corrupted. Time won't torture you. You might start to find ways to enjoy it. Pretty soon, you might find that you've accidentally sat for an hour staring off, feeling in silence, in your feelings, in time. When that's the case, then reflect on that hour. Start to seal that duration into your bones. This is how long an hour actually is in my system, in my experience. Then try to recreate it. Repeat the experiment to continue getting a grasp on the feeling of 1 hour, or however long it may be. And then start expanding. You might get up to spending days or weekends alone in quiet, observing yourself in time without an automatic behavior to be found, and deeply reprogramming fears around spending time alone, in silence, in boredom, in freedom. To work up to that goal, take the practice away from just sitting. As it becomes possible, measure how long time is in different circumstances, in different activities, eventually coming to some semi-regular answer, some somewhat standardized experience of time across conditions. Try walking or driving or cleaning without other distractions while trying to stay in your meat jacket. You'll start learning this is how long an hour is. Oh, shit. This is how long a day really is. And time won't feel so demanding, so tenuous, unpredictable, or disconnective as it becomes homogenized, abundant, and synced up with the rest of your life. Finding secret time resources. For those of us who suffer with time scarcity or time shame, aka, you should always be doing something if the clock reads a time, you'll start to learn that it's okay to have your own time, to be in time, to exist without feeling like something is wrong or you are fucking up. You'll start to realize actually you do have time. In fact, plenty of it, bountiful measures, as much as you need of it. If you are moving at your own pace, there are no limitations. There's as much time as you require for you to operate. The universe provides. And you'll come to realize that time is roughly the only thing in this world that you do absolutely, unquestionably have and deserve because it is the medium of life. By being here, being alive, being born, you are guaranteed time to use for you. How much? We don't know. But every day you wake up is yours by the very fact that you are alive. Time is a resource that you have inherently upon emerging onto this earth. It's why I don't believe in hourly pay. That is literally selling your life. And your time is a finite resource when it is being sourced by other people. When, again, it is bottomless when used for you, by you, at your pace, from the inside out. Time is abundant, but that's something you can only find out through challenging old patterning and behaving at the rhythm of your own innards. You just need to understand how time moves versus how you move versus how the world and your history of trauma try to force you to move, to make the most of it, to standardize it, to use it predictably, efficiently, and calmly, with a sense of time mastery, to be on the same timeline as the rest of the human world, using the same grids to navigate material reality, even if you are driving at different speeds innately. And that means it is our time to wrap this up. It's pretty simple, folks. Trauma causes time, illusions, and distortions. The mind, when reacting to external events, will continually skew the experience of time. When humans are operating by different beats, they have trouble dancing to the same music. And to resolve these issues, you can start by getting into your guts, getting a grasp on time as it flows through them, and getting a new pacekeeper for your life. It's you, not the speed of survival, not everyone and everything around you making demands, but the core of your biological being, moving through the material information that constitutes reality at whatever speed it needs. And that is not nearly as fearful. Cheers, y'all. Hail yourselves. And I'll talk to you next dime. Bye bye.